is our last of our 4 series together. So I wanted to
Is that why you're wearing black? You're in mourning?
I'm depressed. So, I mean, what people come to you for from near and far is advice about how to be confident. I feel like you are kind of the queen of confidence. And also people come to you for your dating and relationship advice. So what is a question that you've gotten from somebody either like this week or in the past that you feel you were able to like really help them with?
Oh, first of all, thank you for saying that I'm the queen of confidence. I don't particularly ascribe that title to myself, or like the CEO of confidence I've heard, or like, none of that applies to me, honestly, because I think what people don't realize is that all of my, whatever you want to call it, confidence, like degaffness, comes from the fact that I wasn't confident. And I particularly myself as like a consumer find just like unbridled confidence kind of a turnoff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's enough to be like, I'm that bitch and like, I'm so confident. It's like, okay, well, I only became confident once I proved to myself that I was doing what I wanted to do, that I could do things that I said I wanted to do, that I could be of value to other people. I think we need to, I think there's a huge difference between confidence and like, I don't know what to call it. There's a line between confidence and arrogance. And I'm not saying that people who preach unbridled confidence are arrogant. To me, I think there's a level of like humility you have to have even when you are confident to say, hey, like I've really fucked up before. It's like I failed. I've made mistakes. Like not everything I've done, I'm glad I did. Like I'm glad I did certain things just so I know that I wasn't going to be good at them. But like not everything is a lesson. Some things just sucked and you move on. So I think this idea that we need to like rebrand all of our failures and all of our past shitty relationships and mistakes as like, something to be learned from. Sometimes the lesson to be learned is like just that you're going to move on, right?
Totally.
From
yeah.
You're not going to repeat it.
That does remind me of something that Stephen Bartlett said. He was talking on his podcast about how, it's kind of toxic for people to always say to somebody like, oh, but it made you stronger. It's like, actually, there's a lot of things that have happened to people that have fucking crushed them and that have made them not stronger and that have caused them years of therapy. And probably if it had never happened to them, they might be further along in certain parts of their life. But I do believe that, every experience, whether good or bad, helps to, it gives you an opportunity probably to learn things about yourself and how you deal with different situations. But I 100% agree with you that I find it to be so arrogant, especially like in this girl boss culture. I find it to be so arrogant when people feel like when they basically say that they got there alone or like that everything that they have, they've earned. It's like nobody has ever gotten anywhere alone. And if you don't have the humility to be like, oh, I got a little lucky. I had, somebody bet on me before I had proved myself, or, everybody has a door open that they need to be grateful for, and they need to be able to recognize that, because I just feel like you're going to fall someday, and you're going to want to be given that grace that, you might not give other people. I feel like it's like when Kim Kardashian was like, oh, everybody just needs to work more, or like nobody wants to work anymore. It's like, actually, that's like not really it.
That's not really it. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to work, or, and I think, and I remember this conversation I had on an episode of my podcast, and like, this was something that always stuck out to me, because I firmly believe that we are not all born with the same set of opportunities, and that a lot of people don't succeed in life or get to be where they want to be because they were just given the short end of the stick. And we only hear the stories of people who've overcome. And I do think that a lot of people who have achieved amazing things have overcome a lot, but we cannot forget that a lot of people have achieved amazing things because they're Blue Ivy Carter, so like, you have to understand that like life is not fair, and the job is not to make it fair. It's to understand, okay, how can I, at least take what I've been given and again, turn lemons into lemonade. But I remember this conversation on my podcast because I'm the daughter of Chinese immigrants who literally came here with nothing, nobody, like, but even they would say, we did not do it alone. And why is that? Because they were born into educated families in Shanghai versus uneducated families in the countryside of China. That gave them a leg up to go to college. So now they have college, right? So then they can apply to grad school in the US and come as
Student
students
visas,
on student visas, right? Which is very different than the people who had to come here illegally. There's a difference between the Chinese people who come here on student visas and are now in the kinds of jobs that you think of, like, chemists, scientists, doctors, all of that, versus the Chinese people who are running Chinese restaurants, who are contractors and everything. It's like they came in a different, so they're already at a disadvantage, right? Because they don't have an education. And that's what I'm forever grateful to my parents for, because they never forced me to become a doctor, a lawyer, anything I didn't want to do. I'm their only child. They were like, you go, let your freak flag fly. You go act if you want to, you do this. We will support you if we can, but if we can't, like, we'll morally support you,
Right.
And they're the only reasons, and I say this like without a doubt, that I am here today, like making a living off of content creation, my writing, all of this, And without that support, it would have been very, very difficult. People do it. But, my dad always said, I came to the US, did what I didn't want to do, or what wasn't my passion, right? So you could do what you wanted to do. And I think that's the crux of the reality, is that, and then I remember the guest saying to me, it's like, well, I just think that's a bit of a cop out, that, anybody can change their career and, do what they love to do if they want to, if they want it badly enough.
Yeah.
It's like, there are so many stories of people who have, like, been chemists and then became artists. And I'm like, yeah, there are, but those are the exceptions and not the rule. And like, honestly, that would have been so irresponsible to me and my mom.
Right.
If he was like, yeah, he's an amazing sketch artist. He does charcoal sketches. We have a ton of his art at our house. No fucking way was that going to be a reality. So,
yeah.
And then, I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm just saying, like, if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, maybe just shut up.
No, I know. Well, I just think it's just so audacious for you to think that like the reality that you've lived in, somehow you have experienced enough to know what also is good for everybody else and what is feasible for everybody else. Like, for instance, I was able to leave a marriage that I didn't want to be in anymore with a 1 and a 3-year-old, which, a lot of people, there were all sorts of judgments about that. And one of them is like, oh, that's really brave that you were able to, like, go off on your own. Where did you get the confidence to do that? It's like, there's a lot of people who aren't leaving their marriages, not because they're not brave. It's because they can't financially support themselves. They can't, they're like, there has to be a lot of things in play that would allow you to create a life for your kids, on your own. And I happen to have, a job that I could rely on. I also knew that their dad was going to have them half the time so that I could work for the other 50% of the time. He wasn't a drug addict. He's not like, he's not an absent father. There's just there's a lot of ways that I got really lucky that allowed me to make what could look like a really, bold choice. But for some people, it's just not an option. It doesn't make them like any more weak of a person,
Yes.
or
100%. I agree with that. And it's like, it takes a level of humility for you to acknowledge that. Whereas I feel like the current discourse on social media is, I did it on my own. And if I did it, you can do it. It's like, yeah, you can do it. It just might be harder for you.
Right.
That's the caveat.
It's really discouraging, I think, for people too, because I think there's a lot of people, and I feel this way about different parts of my life too. And I have at many different times where you just don't feel like you're caught up with other people, or you feel like you should have been further along, or, you see this person who went from maybe like 0 followers to 1 million, like somebody's looking at you, he's like, oh, well, if she could do it, like, why can't I do it? And I've been trying so hard for this many years. And, people get really down on themselves because they're comparing themselves to someone else's story, when like no two stories are alike at all.
Yeah. And I would say to those people, because I used to be one of those people, because nothing worked out for me until I was 32, close to 33. I remember, and I don't know if I've told this story yet, and I'll try to keep it vague so nobody knows what I'm talking about. But when I was in high school and in college, the dream was to be an actress, right? To like be a performer or whatever, because there really wasn't an influencer at the time, that concept. And so it's a really, really hard profession to break into. There are a lot of gatekeepers. And so I left college trying to do that. And while I was struggling to get like 2 lines in a TV show, I knew somebody from school who was starring in shows on Broadway, getting really, really good roles in TV and everything. And I had watched this girl because I'd known her for a really long time. Like she was talented, no doubt. Like I'm not discrediting that at all. But she was also given a lot of opportunity to hone that talent that I wasn't, because her parents could put her into dance lessons when she was 5 and acting and singing and everything. And so she really, I think she grew up with kind of a stage mom, like not one of those crazy ones, just somebody that really fostered her talent ever since she was a very young kid. And so obviously then she, just saying that you have the opportunity and parents who are willing to support it doesn't mean you have the talent to do it. I truly think like she was talented. And then she got very far very quickly. Like right out of college, she was a working actress, which is really, really difficult. And I always remember thinking like, why not me? Oh, I wasn't born into the right family, like all of this. And I think the thing was like, I would have been, it would have been a tough pill to swallow either way, because like seeing somebody from your hometown get to be where you are when you're so far from anywhere near that, it's like, oh my God, like why am I so unlucky?
Right.
But I remember I walked into, there are these casting studios throughout New York City, and they'll cast multiple shows all at the same time. Some are TV shows, some are Broadway, musicals, plays, commercials, whatever. So I walk into this massive casting studio to audition for like my 2-line co-star role that I'm hoping to get in a network television show. And I run into her and she recognizes me, but she clearly doesn't quite like, and so I say her name. I'm like, hi, I'm like nice and everything. And she calls me the completely wrong name with delusional confidence. She's like, hey, Emily, oh my God, it's so nice to see you. And I was like, oh, I had just never felt, when somebody's talking to you in that way, like I'd never felt smaller, right?
Oh.
And then she kind of just like left, and then she clearly knew everybody there. And I don't even know what she was there for, but she was there for something much bigger than me. And much after, like a few weeks or something after the fact, I was like, oh, like maybe I'll reach out to her. And like, because they always say like, hey, you should ask people for help, right? This is why sometimes I'm like, I have a fear of asking people for help, because like not everybody who's doing what you want to do wants to help you.
Oh, no, they do not. Yeah, I know.
So I reached out to her asking her, I'm like, hey, just like, can I have a casual conversation? Nice bumping into you, even though you completely called me the wrong name. And then she turns that email into basically a pitch. She was like, hey, like, I don't even know if she associated that it was the right person, like the same person. She goes, thanks so much for reaching out. Like, I typically charge like whatever, $75 an hour for my coaching services. But for you, since we have like this like hometown connection, I'm willing to cut that by 50% for the first session. And I was just like, oh, go fuck yourself.
That is so creepy.
It was very the whole tone was just very pompous and very like, I would never talk to anybody like that, And so I was like, okay, you're just trying to turn me into a paid client. And so I carried that with me for probably way too long. And as Dave knows, my husband, he's like, you hold a grudge. I was like, I do. I'm just like, because you can feel when somebody is just being like, they don't necessarily have to tell you, oh, hey, you're less than I am. But like, you can feel it when they're treating you like that.
Yes.
And there was no need. It was like, girl, you are already doing, there's no need to like put me down even further with your intonation.
But isn't that so funny that it's less about how much they have, because there's people who don't have much don't have much to brag about who are also like that. And then there's people at the top who are also like that. It almost doesn't matter how much you've accomplished. If you have that personality of like, there's not enough to go around, you're going to carry that with you wherever you are.
No, exactly. And I just remember being like, wow, I really dislike you. And I just, I just didn't think about her for a long time. And then stuff started happening for me when I was 32 on social media.
Oh my God, did she reach out to you?
She did not. No, this is not a full circle moment.
You should just pretend it is for the story.
I know, right? No, but what I would say is...
does she follow you? I need to know if she follows.
Does not.
Okay.
She does not. what I would say to people listening to this story is whenever I get down on myself thinking I'm not where this person is, I'm not where this like influencer, content creator, I wasn't on this list or whatever. I always think about how much it bothered me that this girl that I knew from school was so much further than me. And how I think about now, I wouldn't fucking trade lives with her if you paid me.
Yeah.
Ever.
Isn't that crazy? I mean,
yeah.
What would you say to somebody who feels like they're just not where they want to be and they feel like they've almost missed the boat on becoming who they want to be?
I just don't believe that you missed the boat. I believe that if you missed the boat, it was not yours to take because you're too busy creating your own boat. And my life has been proof of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am only confident today because I had to learn through, all of those years in my 20s that I didn't miss the boat. I felt like I missed the boat. I was like, I didn't do this enough. I didn't do that enough. Like, I'm not a good enough singer or whatever. It's like, it's just truly you're on your own path. And I still think that it's just like for people who are not where they want to be and watching everybody else do what they want to do, just keep going. Like, here's the funny thing about this industry too, is like sometimes people at the top come crashing down and people you discounted years ago come soaring up. Like I remember this girl that I used to follow right when I first started my Instagram back in 2022.
Your fashion Instagram?
My fashion Instagram. No, it was home decor at first.
Oh, okay.
And then fashion.
Okay.
And she was doing the fashion LTK thing very, very, very successfully. And she had, I watched her grow from 50,000 followers to 70,000 to 80,000. She's very, very different than I am. And she's, very sweet, but just like very, very Southern. And that's kind of her whole like vibe. And I was like, how the hell? And then she's like, she was at like somewhat around 100,000 followers. And I was like, I'm never going to get there. I was just watching her grow and I couldn't even get like 3 new followers on a post. I was like, I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get there. And like, obviously I am where I am now. So an actionable tip to people who don't feel like they are where they want to be is experiment, because I would never be here if I didn't experiment with what I was interested in with my content. Post the thing or, write the essay or film the thing that you don't think anybody would care about, but you do. Because sometimes that's the thing that makes all the difference.
Right.
When I posted that video back in 2022, I was like, it was a Hail Mary attempt to make me feel better because I was getting married in 10 days. I just lost out on a pretty big like network recurring role that I'd gotten a call back for. And I felt really shitty about it. And I was like, whatever, I'll just like make a TikTok because it was just something to do. Right. And like, thank God I didn't get that role,
Oh, that's the TikTok that blew up?
Yeah, that was the TikTok that blew up. And I would have never made it, by the way, if I did get that recurring role in that TV show that I was auditioning for.
It is so crazy. And it's funny how you're like, I was in the worst place. I was about to get married in 10 days because we know how you didn't love your wedding.
Yes.
And it's so funny because like, I think from the outside world, we think we know exactly the kind of like frame of mind that somebody's in. Like, oh, she's so lucky. Maybe she just had a baby, like, or maybe she's just getting married, or maybe she's in Europe. Little do people know, like, she might have food poisoning in Europe. She might have COVID, which was my situation. But it's so hard not to compare with social media and to like look at people's lives and feel like, man, this person has it all. I wish that I could be X, Y, and Z.
But what if you could have it all one day? Like I really, it's unimaginable to me that I'm here almost 3 years after. And it's just like, life is truly just magical. And I didn't get here alone,
right.
But like, you're a girl from Rhode Island. Who the fuck knew you would be here one day,
Yeah, it is crazy. Like, and it is, and just like the turns that life takes you on. And I think, yeah, I agree with you on just like one foot in front of the next and keep trying the thing that's going to, maybe if it feels like it might be a little cringe or if it makes you a little uncomfortable, I feel like that's usually the thing that right behind it is the payoff. It has to make you feel like you're pushing yourself a little. Because if you just are trying to stay safe, I don't think people get payoffs that way.
Well, and I think the thing too is like, if you're trying, our advice, I think, is more applicable to people who are trying to become content creators, which I hear these days. from people that like the thing now in LA is no longer, oh, I want to be an actress. It's, oh, I want to be an influencer. Is that true?
Well, I feel like even that now is just becoming so saturated. I feel like there's another thing that's about to happen, because the influencer thing, I don't know. I feel like everybody's an influencer now. But do you feel like there's always room?
There's always room. I do believe that. It's just, as we've seen 15 years ago, the types of influencers looked very different than the types of influencers that are kind of at the forefront of everybody's attention now. You know, 10 to 15 years ago, it was very curated. It was very editorial. You know, I'm thinking of, and those women are still working. It's just like, it's about just sort of being able to change with the times. So I don't know what the next thing is. Like maybe like people who create like AI generated versions of themselves and are able to monetize that. I have no idea.
I think you're right. I think it's something AI. We all got to get on that.
I know, right? But, you know, I think like our advice for, you know, my advice, especially is specifically more tailored to creators or, you know, aspiring creators, because that's what I'm experienced with. But it's also like, if you have a business idea, you know, I'll never forget like Ang Lee, you know, the guy who wrote Brokeback Mountain.
Okay.
I think he spent like the first 40 years of his life, it's something crazy, just like getting odd jobs, like not really being respected or like given a shot in the film industry. And he was like, I almost quit. And my wife was the one who told me, like, don't give up on your dream. And now he's Ang Lee, you know, and who doesn't know Brokeback Mountain, you know? So it's like, I think it's like, you know, when you're on your way somewhere, if it feels organic to you, like if the content feels like, I want to talk about this and I would be interested in listening to this if it was given to me. But that goes for anything, you know, a business.
It does
like
go
you're
for
solving
everything.
a problem.
And it does. I was even thinking about this the other day because, you know, we're talking about this in terms of content creation, but also just like with my life where, you know, I went through the divorce and then I had, you know, 3.5, 4 years of kind of being like, I really want to find somebody new. I really want to be in like it felt like I was never going to be like in a relationship that actually felt like safe, or that I felt like I could have a future with, that I would be looking forward to. And I never felt like I wanted to give up. I always in the back of my mind was like, I have hope. Like I always had hope that like it could happen to me. And I think there are some people who feel like, oh, good things just don't happen to me. I think one of the things that was on my side, and that's always been on my side, is like, I do feel like ultimately good things will happen. I feel like that, like, if I believe they will, then they will. And now that I'm kind of like in a place where I'm really happy with my relationship and we have like such a beautiful future that I'm really excited for, you almost get this kind of feeling of like, okay, wait, why aren't I like euphoric all the time? Like the other day I was kind of like, just like PMSing or something. And I'm like, wait, you literally have everything that you 4 years ago would have died for, and that you've been working for, you know, just like the podcast and the job and now the guy, and I have my kids are healthy, and, you know, and you hear all this horrible stuff on the news, and it's like what more could I possibly ask for in my life to be happier? But it's such like a natural thing for like when you get the thing that you've always wanted, to kind of feel like it's almost like your mind is still in that survival pace, but like your body and your mind haven't caught up to the fact that like you can actually like relax now. And do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think there's some study, and again, like, don't quote me on this, but I do know I read this somewhere, that people are not actually happiest once they attain the thing they've always wanted. They're happiest when they're on their way to attaining the thing, the relationship, the jobs they've always wanted, and they feel like it's working. So that's the caveat.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. It's not necessarily like this is why people are happier planning for a vacation than they are on that vacation.
Right,
like
right.
how
well,
happy
that's the
were you
dopamine
thinking
thing.
about Italy?
Yeah.
You know?
I think we talked about,
and then you got to Italy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like dopamine's released in the pursuit of a goal. I do know that. It makes sense. Dopamine's like the learning hormone. So like if you feel like it's working, then like that's what learning is, like when you're getting a payoff for your efforts. So that makes sense. But it's almost like, okay, then what the hell is the point if when we get the thing that we want, we're not like just totally satisfied? Not that I'm not so happy in my relationship. I am. I wouldn't want anything to change. But like, when are we supposed to feel like we've made it?
Okay. So here's the funny thing, because I literally just posted a story about this yesterday, that I think like whatever, 6 months ago, I was talking to Dave. I went through a really rough first half of the year. My mental health was in the can. I was doing everything from the outside that everybody was like, oh my God, you're traveling to all these far flung places. You're like partnering with all these great brands. I was like living the influencer dream. But on the inside, I was like, it always felt like I was one step away from losing everything. It just felt like, I was in a weird place professionally. And we will leave it at that. But I just remember saying to Dave, I was like, from a financial standpoint and like a prestige and like a number standpoint, like I got more than what I asked for, but I'm not happy. I just don't enjoy my life because I feel like I'm at risk of losing it.
Really? What made you feel like it was on the brink of being taken away? I mean, nobody can take away your following. Nobody can take away.
Yeah, it was a completely illogical. It wasn't like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to get canceled or whatever, anything like that. It was just sort of like, oh my God, like after every partnership offer, I was always like, oh my gosh, what if I don't get another one ever? It was always that, it was always predicting like failure. It was always predicting.
So there's no rationality to this at all.
There's no rationality. It's just kind of like a scarcity mindset, right? And I remember feeling that at the time and hating the people that are like, you just have to be confident. Like it's you're the one, like, stop talking so like vision board, manifest. And I was like, shut the fuck up. My brain is literally broken. I'm like, I was like really, really depressed. And then to me, like, I think there were a few concrete things that I had launched my solo podcast last year. And it was the thing that you do for a creator like me. Like that was the logical next step. And I basically filmed the entire season prior to even launching. And through that experience, I really realized that I didn't like it.
That wasn't supposed to be part of the plan because you're supposed to be the perfect influencer and you're supposed to like it.
I'm supposed to have an amazing podcast that millions of people listen to. And I think because I didn't like it, that came through in the content and it wasn't performing well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard I've also been raised on the never quit mindset, where it's like, because I didn't quit, I'm here. So like, maybe there's another angle. And I kept, for the last year, I was like, okay, like, let me try this. Let me do that. Let me switch to solo episodes. Like, and nothing just quite hit. And every week I would have to upload an episode and every week I would just dread editing, doing all of it. And some of the conversations I had were great. And some of the conversations I had afterwards, I was like, why did I just do that? Like, my audience doesn't want to listen to it. I don't want to record it. It's costing me time and money. And it took me a really long time to realize that it's okay to quit at things that, you're failing at, essentially. Right. And I think it's like hard to do that when you're in the public domain because before nobody knew who I was and I was like failing in private. But like, I think
it is really hard to fail in public and it's hard to, or not even in public, like for me with my family and not really my friends, mostly my family, certain family members be like, oh, you're changing what you're doing again. Cause like I've done like a bunch of different things and like I'm always kind of just trying new things. But like I also feel like fuck them because you have to be able to pivot. I think it's hard to know when the brave thing to do is to stick it out through the seasons. And this can apply to like your marriage or to something that's not working in career wise. Or is the brave thing to do to pivot and to get out and, and it's such a nuanced thing. I'm not sure.
I think the thing is like, especially in our field where you have to like content creation to an extent to do it. It is somewhat of I say this massive air quotes, an art form, it's a creative field. Yeah. Right. I'm not saying all of us are Van Gogh, right?
But I am.
You need to, right? But you need to like it and you need to like the content you're putting out because if you don't like it, no one else will. And I think for me, it was like, I always think like this applies to everything. If the only thing keeping you in the relationship or the job or the life is fear, then that means you need to stop.
Oh, I like that.
And I think for me, it was always like, well, if I quit the podcast, this is where it ends, right? And I think what I really realized was that like, okay, I don't like podcasting. I do like communicating, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so, I launched my newsletter first on Beehive back in April and I was like, oh, wait, I can do this. and I can do this for free for a really long time if I have to. And that was the feeling. With podcasting, it was always like, well, if I make a lot of money from it, that'll make it worth it, you know, but I don't want to do this for free. And like the writing thing, I mean, I could write essays every day. Nobody needs to hear that from me. So
it reminds me of like I would podcast for free. You would write for free. My friend Katrina, who just launched her second app. She had Tone It Up before, where she was a personal trainer. Then she did Tone It Up, and then now she's doing another app where with all of those things, she started off like training for free. And I used to teach yoga and Pilates and I hated it. And like, oh my God, you couldn't pay me enough money to teach a class. And I'm thinking about her because I just did I went to one of her classes this weekend and I think she taught like 6 classes. And I'm just like, oh my God, I would be so miserable right now if I were you. But like everybody has their own thing like that they would be able to do for no money. So I think that is a good gauge. Like, would you do this for free if you could?
Yeah. And if you can, then that means you're probably better at it. And I also think that if you are going to do something for free, that means you love it enough to get better at it. You might not be better than the competition or your peers right now, but if you love it enough to do it for free, you will hone your craft to get it to a point where, you know, I think in order to do anything, you have to be reasonably certain that you're going to be better than everything everybody else is offering. And that's not coming from a place of arrogance. That's coming from a place of, if you don't believe you have something special to offer, why should anybody else?
Right. Although there is always that one delusional person who really thinks they can sing and like no one's told them yet that they like really I feel like I aspire to be that kind of a person because somebody probably told that person they could sing and, you know, good for them. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the world tells you whether or not
what
you're good
at. Exactly. And I think you need to listen to that, you know, and it's like, but yeah, I would never teach an exercise like class. I don't even know what you call it, like a yoga class, a workout class? I don't even know what it's called.
Like any kind of like, just being seen in, it's interesting because like I like podcasting. I hate public speaking and I don't like being in like front of a group of people and instructing or anything. I hate it.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, yeah, I think our listeners have some good takeaways here. Just like, you know, if you feel like you haven't made it yet, keep going. If you're sticking in something because you're afraid to pivot, then that's all the information you need. You should not be sticking in any situation, a marriage, a career, and a friendship for fear of what could happen if you walked away. And I feel like that is a good gauge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you actually afraid of? Like giving up something you really love to do or giving up and seeing how people are going to perceive that.
Right.
You know, and the same thing with friendships. Like I stayed in female friendships for way too long because we had mutual friends and I was afraid how that was going to affect our mutual friends. And then I was like, nah, it's fine. It's really freeing when you get to a point where you realize that even if the worst case scenario happened, like, oh, none of my girlfriends want to be friends with me because I broke up with this girl, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need those friends, you know, or, you know, if I quit this and like certain sponsors don't want to like, you know, partner with me anymore, that's okay. Because I will find my people. I will find the brands that align with my mission. I will find, you know, the friends that I align with better. I will find my people. They're out there. But that's like coming from a place of power rather than a place of fear. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. Anything that you want our listeners to know?
If you guys want more of what I have to say, you can find me on Instagram or TikTok, obviously, and my Substack, where I say all the things that I can't say on Instagram and TikTok. So we get real honest.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much.